Awesome. All righty. Okay, so we are going to get going. First of all, thank you so much all for being here. It is an honor and a pleasure to have you. I'm Amanda Melcine. I'm a primary care pediatrician in Richmond, and with Ashley, one of the co-founders of CHN. Ashley, want to just say hi? Okay, she'll say hi in a second. And we have a bit of a packed schedule today. This is our second strategy and structure update. So what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to recap some of what the sort of big pieces that we shared in our last strategy and structure update, which took place at the end of June. And then the primary focus for today is really going to be on where we're headed as an organization, talking about strategy, membership, and decision making. Just to remind everyone and just bring up again where these decisions and the background for all of this has come from lots of different places, primarily through CHN's listening campaign that started in the spring of 2022 and has wrapped up, as well as with our engagement with Building for Mission, which is they're organizational consultants who have been working with us on our strategy and structure, and then also from our advisory council and conversations that we've had with many of you. Alrighty, so Ash, I'm going to turn it over to you to kick us off. And did you share the Google form? I'm going to right now. Okay.
So hello, everybody. Nice to see you. I'm Ashley McClure, a primary care internist in the East Bay area. Okay, great. So we're going to review a little bit of what we shared before, just to kind of recap and reground on where we're at. The vision for CHN is that we're a community of health professionals and health workers across California who are diverse in race, ethnicity, gender, geographic location, and health professional type. So lots of types of diversity, and that we are a powerful contributor to the broader climate justice movement for realizing health equity through policy level climate action. Another part of our vision of tomorrow is that all health professionals, health workers, people in the health community in California are engaged in climate solutions advocacy as a very natural extension of our work, of our day jobs, of our health work. And then lastly, and also very importantly, that CHN members feel really fulfilled by their climate advocacy and climate work and feel a sense of belonging in our community. So it's very meaningful and also effective, both. Next slide. And then our mission, which we have revisited also, is that CHN is a group of members of the California health community who advocate for climate action through a health and equity framework. We use community organizing to build the base of climate-engaged health, allied health, and healthcare administrator professionals across California to leverage our trusted health voices in support of the climate justice movement in order to protect health and actually achieve health equity.
Thank you. You want to mute? Okay. So in terms of who our members are and why, again, this is building on what we started off talking about last month, but we are looking to link arms with all health professionals, health worker, or any health professional, health worker in California. So anyone, we're still struggling for what the right term or phrase is that encompasses anyone and everyone who is on some sort of a healthcare team. So that would be inclusive of, people working in hospitals, people working in community health centers, doulas, anybody who's involved in health and promoting health, including health system administrators, the public health sector, and then including students and retirees, obviously from those areas as well. And our goal is to really build a community that is as diverse as the health community in California is. So when we talk about diversity, we're talking about racial, ethnic, health professional type, geographic location diversity. Right. And this is a lovely graphic just meant to illustrate that.
And for many people, community organizing is kind of a new term. I wasn't as familiar with it a mere 2 or 3 years ago. So community organizing is how CHN wants to make social change. And it's really about having our members be moving up in terms of leadership and engagement as we do the work. So organizers, which Barack Obama may have been one of the first people to really make community organizing something that people talked about in the kitchen table. Cesar Chavez obviously was one, Dolores Huerta, MLK, of course. So these are community organizers who look to their own community, who see a need for change and identify and invest in and build up leaders within that community who then do the same in a snowflake model. And it's something that can really scale. And Sunrise Movement is a group that we look to a lot for the success they're having and their impact balloon. And so that's what we're anchored in, which is not something that there's a lot of crossover into in the health community, which is why there's a special opportunity also for education about how we can work together to build what's commonly called people power to make change together. And then push next. So our style is engaging, as Amanda said, California's health community who care about climate and health, expanding the tent who cares about climate and health, but really those who are experienced, who are concerned about climate and who work in health. Those are our people who we're trying to invest in to become leaders and make kind of catalyze change together. Next slide. So this is a visual of our theory of change, and I'm going to read our theory of change just kind of with this there. So the theory of change is your theory of how your own community can use the resources that you have in order to bring about the change you want to see in the world. So our theory of change is that if we organize and enable California's health professionals and health workers, health community to put pressure on policymakers and decision makers, then we will catalyze and see bold, urgent, system level climate solutions because of the lever that we have, the tool that we uniquely have is the social trust and influence our professions have in society. So this is a way of visualizing why we're not joining other climate groups that don't have that special tool that we uniquely do, being a part of the health community. Okay, and then you.
Alrighty, so I am going to try to bring all of these pieces together into visualizing our strategic vision for CHN. So here we go. So CHN, as we've talked about, is a community of health professionals and health workers across California who are diverse in race, ethnicity, gender, geographic location, and health professional type, who are organized to put pressure on policymakers and decision makers. Working in collaboration and partnership with community, environmental justice, and youth organizations, and centering those who are most impacted to achieve bold, urgent, system-level climate solutions to protect health. Awesome. And so with that, okay, Ashley's going to go a little bit longer, and then we're going to start asking for some feedback and asking you all, if you're up for it, to also follow along in the Google form that Ashley shared in the chat, but we'll get there in a second.
So this is a long time coming, and our one of our dearest mentors, Linda Rudolph here, has basically been recommending this as our strategy for a while, but we had to go through a long process and we got a lot of feedback from you, our members and others. But CHN strategy, I would love for there to be a drum roll right now, because it's very clear that state level advocacy is where we want to and have a really important opportunity to orient all of our people power, our member kind of collaboration around. So that's the direction we're heading in, is state level advocacy. And we see that being a really important opportunity in legislation. So, you know, AB 467 of like the health and safety setbacks from oil and gas extraction and extraction is one example. So going through the California legislature with bills, but also regulations, and that's things, you know, agencies that permit oil and gas extraction and that regulate refineries, and CARB, which is the California Air Resource Board, and how, you know, how they're regulating kind of and trying to achieve our state greenhouse gas reduction goals. So both the regulation side through agencies, which are really powerful, and also legislation, and the mix of which of those we focus on more or less in certain years will change, and we'll tell you how that will come about. But state level advocacy is what CHN is building our structure around making an impact on. And as we talked about, that we're doing that through community organizing. So the base of our members are our power, and kind of, you know, building up the skill sets of our members, the confidence of our members to talk about the health impacts of climate change, to talk about that with the general public and also colleagues in all sorts of venues, is another piece of how we're going to engage our members to do that in a really effective way. And then, you know, through the listening sessions, we also talked a lot about how there's a lot of interest with our members in helping to bring about decarbonizing the health sector. And that's really important. And we see that being what is called like a resource team. So we want that to be something that we help support our members in learning about and sharing information about. And it's not going to be, that's not where we're trying to put our members' power. And actually there's on the next, on slide 11, if you could show that. One more slide, or just next.
Oh, yeah.
So we showed this before, this concept of the dynamite, which is valuable, because what we're building the structure to do is for all of our members, you know, upwards of 600 at this point, and we're looking to gather and recruit thousands of members. What we want all of our members, the dynamite is our uniquely trusted voices. And what we want to organize all of our members, bringing their dynamite of that trusted voice to the same place to really make a meaningful impact on state level legislation and or regulation. And so that's where that's the major structure that we're going to actually build our teams around, because that's the top priority. The decarbonizing healthcare and, you know, getting confident and talking to colleagues, that's really important also, but that's not our main power strategy. So the resource teams will help us to talk to colleagues and recruit more members and make changes within our own, you know, spheres of where we work. But the social change that we're building our structure around is state level policy. And if you go back, no, actually we're good. We're good. Yeah.
Okay.
And then feedback. So we're really excited to hear your questions and ideas and comments. And then I'm going to actually read out Linda's comment here. Linda shared a question of like who we work with as part of the strategy summary. So we're going to get to like the collaboration shortly, and that who we're going to work with is a really good question. So we'll come to that actually in the next kind of chapter. Any other ideas, immediate feedback? Yeah, I'll drop the Google form in there. So if you want to speak to your questions, or if you want to put them in the Google form, that would be great too. But we'd love to hear your voices.
It's Vanessa. Can I talk?
Please.
Hi. I just I'm on my phone, so it's not the best. But yeah, I'm in the Google Forms, which is awesome. Love the vision and the clarity in terms of definitions, terms. I think we're getting more focused, which is good because it makes us more concrete, right? But my impression in the past couple of years is that what else is really significant in terms of policy is local and county, because California, I'm in San Diego. California is such a huge and diverse state in terms of issues. And I feel that a lot of decisions more lately than in the past regarding the decarbing and electrification is happening at the county and local level in terms of policy decisions.
Sorry, and am I still making Ashley echo or vice versa, or no? That's better.
Yeah, I think it's okay, but could you hear me or did I not?
No, that was thank you, Vanessa. Yeah, I was just gonna jump in and try to answer that. So I couldn't agree more, Vanessa, from my understanding as well. And I think, from hearing lots and lots of people much more expert than I am talk about where these decisions are made. I think at this point, so much of what we've learned in the first 2.5 years of attempting to make an impact on, in some way, is that we have to start somewhere. We can't do everything all at once, and that we have to, this idea of bringing that, not trying to scatter our already limited power, or more than it already is. And so where we want, that's why, especially, we want to start at the state level. I think ultimately we don't have this figured out, and probably won't until we start working through things. We'd like to get to the point where, with a clear structure in mind and clear parameters, that we could have local teams of CHN members that are acting on a regional or local level. But we're definitely not there yet, acting in partnership with local groups. We're definitely not there yet. But I want to say, I hear you, I agree. And in order to grow well, we have to grow in a smart way.
Okay, I understand and agree. I just think as we go forward, what's really important, even in terms of impacting things at the state level, what we found in working with legislators is that, for example, is that local connection impacts more than, our numbers are really important, of course, but also being able to say, you have a connection because you're in our community and we want you to act as our representative from this community. So, empowering our own people to recognize that and work with their, local state representatives.
Totally. And we'll get into this more as we move through, but that is very much a part of this vision, is that though, when we talk about influencing legislation at the state level, we're still talking about going through our own representatives. And so a big part of the structure and the vision is that once we've identified what pieces of legislation or advocacy or regulation we're working on, is having our local teams who are building toward those connections with their local representatives and other local groups, that we're still working on that local level. It's just that we're working on state level advocacy. Does that make sense? So it's still—
Yes, it more than makes sense, having been with you on this journey. You know what I mean? So yeah, agreed. All good.
Exactly. So it's still about you're my local, you're my state senator or state assembly person. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Oh, Mark.
So I wonder about the part, let me just start by saying, I'm not in any way
Mark,
trying to,
we'd love to hear your question.
can you not hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, thanks. So I just wanted to start by saying, I'm not trying to be exclusionary at all. I'm just clearly trying to understand because people will ask us and we'll need to be able to understand. How is a decision made as to whether someone belongs? Is it purely self-identified? I think I'm connected to healthcare, so I can be a member of CHN. I'll just give you a quick example. I have a good friend who works in healthcare construction because his company knows how to make MRI rooms, etc. So he works in healthcare construction. Can he be a member?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I don't know that we can, I don't know. The healthcare construction has not come up before.
But let's not ask specifically, like, what kind of things have you ever turned someone away to say, hey, that's a little like, how can we describe to others where our line is?
I mean, the only people we've ever, I mean, turned away sounds very vicious, you know, like the only people we've said, you know, either people who are outside of California and then people who don't have a health connection. Like we've had teachers who have joined, you know, who have requested membership, those sorts of things. We haven't we haven't had such questions before, that specific question before. I would say that I think that's a good question. I don't know, Ashley, do you have any grand thoughts on that other than to say we will need to sort that out?
Anchor this back.
Yeah.
That's a great curveball, Mark. It's a really good example. We have, I mean, another example that's come up is vets. You know, can people who work in health in terms of veterinarian medicine work? And we are not focused on vets. This is human health community workers. My sense of that though would probably be that this wouldn't be the place for them. Construction being the primary thing.
But I wouldn't say no.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think
we
when
wanna
you think
talk to
about
that
it, there's
person.
lots of examples, and I would just have it figured out. Let's say a healthcare reporter might not be so sure where they lie in healthcare reporter. I don't, you know,
Yeah.
finance people, billing companies. I mean, there's a lot of people in the healthcare industry, and I guess the piece I worry about, and this is going to sound elitist, but I'm just trying to make the point. You know, healthcare worker does not have the same gravitas in Sacramento or in DC that like physician voice does. And so I'm not saying that we should be physician voice, because I understand we're definitely trying to be something different from that. But it just speaks to the point that if there's no sort of limit, you're going to quickly lose credibility.
Yeah. My sense is that the clinician, you know, people who care for patients one-on-one will probably be the center, the anchor of our group long-term. But you raise really good questions with no easy answer, at least immediately. But we're gonna have to think about that and how to draw the line, because it's very hard. I mean, you know, I often refer to Sunrise Movement. It's like, if you're over 35, sorry, that's very easy, relatively, you know. So yeah, we might have to, and because we are we're the state group for the consortium, I think we might actually lean into get some feedback from them too on exactly how to draw these lines, which is hard and kind of uncomfortable because of the exclusive nature. But you're right, like what our tool is unique trust, and that's what we're trying to bring to the broader movement. So we'll have to get back to you.
Yeah, Amanda, you're on mute.
Is that better? Can you put your volume down? Okay. One of the things that is really, really important as a value that I hold, that I want for our organization to hold, is one of inclusion and diversity and representing the breadth of who our communities really are. And Mark, while I hear you that there's, you know, certainly like there's that gravitas or whatever you want to call it, I think we have to engage as wide a community as possible to come up with solutions that are going to work for the most number of people possible. So my thought with the healthcare construction worker is like, bring them on in. Like, let's see what, let's do it. Let's like build this big tent. And I agree, like there have to be parameters, but I think that those are big parameters. And I think we have to keep that tent as big as we possibly can. That's my take.
Yeah, Linda.
Yeah, I made a comment in the comment box that, I think one of the most powerful unions in the state is the Service Employees International Union. And I've been doing some work with their Environmental Justice and Climate Committee. And I think the union is really anxious to both educate their members about climate from a health perspective and think about how their members can actually reach out on climate as a health and EJ issue to people in the communities in which they live. And they've done some very interesting work looking at the distribution of where their members are. And they primarily live in the areas of the state that are considered disadvantaged communities. So I think it would be very interesting over time, because they also don't want doctors coming in and quote, telling them what to do, to build an alliance with them that I think could really make our voice stronger and would be a really interesting partnership. And they also are people who have a lot to do with whether or not decarbonization efforts in hospitals actually get implemented or not. They're the people that are the janitors and, doing the temperature controls and, all that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't want to leave them out. And at some point it might be worth more actively pursuing an alliance with them.
Yeah.
More questions? Do you want to invite that?
Yeah, sure. Does anyone else want to, hopefully people are filling out the Google form. We'll get back into it. Does anyone have any last question or comment?
Well, I pasted it into the chat so you can click on the link there. But I think that the idea that we're all trusted voices is sort of eroding both with COVID and with the continued exorbitant costs of healthcare that make a lot of people really angry, and justifiably so. And so I think part of our job is to, identify and reduce healthcare waste and overuse.
I think
Tom, do you want to be on the team working on healthcare decarbonization? Is that what you're saying? Pretty good idea. We'll need it. And thanks for joining too.
should we go back to, you want me to screen share? Yeah. Wait, where did my screen go? Sorry. Okay. Can you all hear me? I can't hear me. Okay, can you all hear me? Yeah, okay. So we are gonna jump back in. We're miraculously like on time here, so we'll keep going with it. So here is, I know I feel like drum roll. Here is what we have come up with as what CHN's structure will look like. This is very broad strokes, so there's going to be lots of detailed questions that we cannot answer. But the general idea is that we will have an advocacy advisory council, and you'll hear more about that in a second. And Linda, this gets to your question of, okay, who's weighing in on what campaigns and what actions we take. And this will be people outside of Climate Health Now who comprise the Advocacy Advisory Council. We will have a leadership team, and we'll be starting with a transitional leadership team, but ultimately the leadership team will be elected by members, and we'll get into that in a second. And then we will have CHN members. So just a little bit more fleshed out here. So the Advocacy Advisory Council will be comprised of leaders of community-based climate groups, environmental justice, and advocacy organizations in California, either working already at a state level or at regional or local levels. The leadership teams, which will first be a transitional leadership team, and we'll be announcing more about that soon, will be CHN members that represent geographical diversity across the state, and who are chosen by local teams. And then again, there's lots of details that will be fleshed out about this in terms of how we are able to achieve, representation from in lots of different ways onto the leadership team. And then CHN members who are on local teams, who are working together, Vanessa, just as you said, to engage in statewide campaigns. So figuring out how to engage with their local, whoever is representing them at the state level on the campaigns that we're working on. And then resource teams who support basically the base and the growth of CHN, and then support those local teams who are taking action. So one thing you're going to see this pop up on the next few slides is as we've been working through all of this, the question that we have been asking in the back of every sort of decision and trying to think this through is, okay, does this move us toward our strategic vision? So when we think back, it's in the Google form, but that slide that we talked to right before the last break that had the 5 different boxes, trying to think through, okay, does this sort of structure support a community of health professionals working in partnership, taking action together? And so that's always the question that we're trying to come back to. And then because, flowing right out from structure is, okay, well, how are decisions going to be made among these 3 groups? So again, broad strokes is that the Advocacy Advisory Council would make recommendations to the leadership team on what campaigns they think, on the campaigns on which they think CHN could make a meaningful contribution. The leadership team would then decide, okay, of these campaigns that are being recommended, what can we actually do? So one big piece of that is thinking through, like, okay, what do we actually have capacity for? What are we already working on? What can we say yes to this? Can we say no? And then also really trying to be the filter through, to ask, okay, is this something that is going to resonate with our members? Is this something that we think that there's excitement to work on? Do we already have, how much foundation have we laid for this already? Are these entirely new concepts, et cetera? And then CHN members, and we're going to get into this in a little bit more detail in a second, but the CHN members are the ones who will have the power to choose a new leadership team. So essentially, if you're not liking what's coming through the leadership team and the Advocacy Advisory Council, you can participate and then vote those people out. There will be changes to that leadership team, and thus to what decisions come through. Okay.
I just put the strategic vision if you want to speak to it again. It's the next slide.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Oh, no, that's okay. Okay. I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Wonderful. Any questions so far? Okay. So currently, kind of to your point, Mark, about membership right now, currently the way people become members is they go to our website and just sign the Join Us form, which ask what their role is in the health community. And anybody in California in health can become a member. And we haven't defined membership beyond that. So what we're working on now, and want to walk you through kind of the different membership options that we've thought about. So some of these are kind of reflect other organizations. So where we are now is that there's no requirements, right? So everybody can become a member. And we haven't asked people to sign that they support our principles or values, but we're pretty much right now in the no requirements, which we don't think serves our strategic goal of engaging members more, investing in them, helping them become leaders in their spheres, and scaling that engagement. Another way that we kind of style of membership that we have considered is more accessible, that there would be some dues that would be invited but not required to be a member. Some level of participation in like a welcome to CHN meeting, and then participating in 1 or 2 or some number of actions that CHN takes each year. And another option we are considering is the action plus dues. So there's some level of engagement and activity taking part in what we're doing in our collective action and dues. And then the last one, which is what we're heading towards and we think makes the most sense for us, is a tiered structure. So there's, basically any health community member in California can be a member and is invited to become a member, and that not all of those members get to necessarily vote. So on the next slide, the structure that we're thinking makes the most sense, and we're really excited to hear your feedback, is that we would keep it the same. Like there's no threshold other than, agreeing with our principles and our values to become a member if you're in the health community in California. But it does feel right that people get to vote on who the leadership team is if you're engaged as a member. So there's some level of activity of taking part in our actions together with us that is required in order to get to determine who's leading and who's making decisions. So this is kind of like, basically most legislatures is that you vote on that leadership team, but we do want people to vote to be our members who are engaged and taking action with us. And then the leadership roles, in a democratic way, they're the ones who get to make decisions about where we use our resources, where we put our dynamite, and the way that we get to make sure that they're doing what our members want is by the members getting to vote, the engaged members getting to vote. So there's definitely a lot of details still to kind of hammer out, but this is the broad strokes, is that we want to continue to invite everybody to become a member. And in order to take part by voting in the direction that we grow in, we want engagement to be that bar. And we may have an invitation to have dues too, but that's not part of how you get to make a decision. We don't want no votes to be bought. So I think we're at the discussion moment, right? Next slide. Oh, and then to the last part about that, so refraining to this question of does it move us towards our strategic vision, which is organizing the health community across California to engage in climate and catalyze climate action in the interest of health. We think that this does because we're using community organizing. We want our members to get more and more engaged, and we want to incentivize engagement because you get to participate in growing this organization that is about the community. So yeah, we would love to hear your thoughts on what we're seeing as the right way forward for membership and who gets to vote. I see Vanessa. Vanessa, you're on mute.
We encountered need for funds. So, and as we go forward, that will be more so. So I think requiring some dues is important. I do agree with the democratic process, and also dues in terms of, what people can, based on their situation, like students and maybe retirees, whatever, can have to, it's important for commitment, right? So pay what you can, but with pretty clear amounts suggested, you know what I mean? To be, and that I think furthers one's commitment, but agreed the democratic process in terms of being active as a requirement for voting, because without being active and participating at a level, then you're not really an informed member for making decisions, right?
Yeah, you nailed it, exactly. And many of you have heard me talk about Pedja Stojicic, who's one of our mentors also, and he recently said, you know, the more self-sustaining an organization can be, the more that our members provide that financial support, which is real for staffing to make this sustainable, the more we get to stay with the agenda that we have, and we're not you know, carrying out the agenda of some foundation. So the more self-sustaining, the better, because we get to be really true to what our priorities are, which is catalyzing equitable climate action in California, and it's the, you know, our own agenda. So yeah. Yes, Lauren, we'll put the Google form back in. Thanks for joining, by the way. Any other questions? We have 15 spacious minutes to discuss and hear your thoughts, which we really value and really appreciate everybody, you know, being a part of this, because it feels like we're building this foundation together, and we're getting ready to be really powerful, and your feedback makes everything better. So please do share.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
All right. My name's Tara. I'm a emergency resident at Highland. I've met a few of you. I guess I was just wondering about the vision in terms of involvement with younger physicians and healthcare providers, because I can see, like, just hearing it, kind of like the vision moving forward, we definitely want trusted members of the community to like be speaking on behalf. And I can see how, you know, somebody who's like an intern may not, their voice may not carry the same weight as a provider who's been working in the community for 30 years. And at the same time, when we talk about dues, someone who's an intern or like even in their residency at all may not be in a financial position to contribute to CHN if dues are part of that requirement. And so I was wondering what your vision is moving forward in terms of, do you see med students and residents as part of this organization? Would you refer them to like Med Students for a Sustainable Future or other organizations? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Awesome. Oop. Tara, it's good to see you. I know you have been in the thick of it in residency, so it's nice to hear your voice. So I would say to that we would, yes, we would, that everyone's voice is important, and it is important in for different reasons. And for, you know, that I guess my big picture answer is we would welcome everyone. And one of the things, I don't think we have this, I think at one point it maybe was on a slide, but I don't think we have it now, but one of the things that we want to work toward, and that hasn't been a strength of ours to date, is figuring out, and will be a part of figuring out, okay, what is in the tiered membership model, how do you meet requirements for membership, is being much, much more aware of having options for people who have different schedules and can't accommodate a lunchtime meeting, or conversely could only ever accommodate this time. Like, how are we going to make this work for as many people as possible? And that's, I think, something, you know, like that is just going to take talking to a lot of different people and trying to figure out how, you know, offering meetings at multiple times, offering recordings of meetings, etc. So I would say, just like very anecdotally, one of the most powerful legislative meetings I've been in ever, that I can remember in the last few years, was actually with med students talking about their experience. And I think that really resonated with the elected officials. So I would say those voices are vital. And I think we have so much to learn from people younger, you know, people younger than we are. And then in terms of would students be welcome to join, I think we are super aware that we are not the only game in town, and we're not trying to out compete or do things to take members away from any other group. So I would say yes, and like if we have what we have always done and will continue to do is when we have med students want to join, we say welcome, and are you already connected with med students for a sustainable future? Here's how you connect with them. And I think we will continue to do that because as we know, this problem is so big and is not going anywhere anytime soon. And we need all of our voices in all of these different avenues.
Shawin, I see your hand up. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, I think I understand kind of why we need this structure and the voting and all of that and the dues. It makes sense, but I'm just worried that it will kind of what Tara was saying, but a little bit beyond that, which is like, I'm afraid that it's going to alienate younger people who are more hesitant politically, because just this whole structure makes it seem, I don't know, just too similar to kind of the political issues we have today, right? I'm having a hard time kind of verbalizing what I'm trying to say, but it's just, it's a little off-putting, and I'm trying to figure out how to make it so that it's not like just dues. It's like you get something else other than voting privileges. It's something else that you can get, and also looking at different, revenues for money to come in, like, I don't know, even just other things that people can purchase or something like that, right? Just some other way of making it so it's not just dues. I don't know why, but it just.
Yeah. So just to be, to maybe clarify, so the dues have zero to do with voting. Voting, what we're proposing is that voting is based on participation, because participation is what we really need in community organizing, so that everybody can join, but those who get to vote on what we work on, the requirement to vote is participating. Dues are like a bonus that we need, but nothing about dues will be tied to whether you get to vote.
But see, like, you have to explain that. So then the fact that you have to explain it means that somebody who's just joining, it's going to be confusing, right? And thus it's like it could turn off people before they even join and see how amazing this group is. Do you get what I mean?
Wait, so Shwin, sorry, I think I get what you mean, but explain it more, like, can you explain it more, like where, and to emphasize what Ashley said, like, I don't even, yeah, the dues piece, I feel like we maybe, yeah, in no way is related at all to anything else, but what, like, explain more, like, where you think that, because I think that I want to understand more, like, where that could be off-putting.
I think especially with somebody who's just newer to this space, right? That, isn't sure of what they can do or what their role is. They want to join an organization to learn more of what they can do. But then to kind of have this upfront, like, asking of dues without knowing, I think because I don't feel like healthcare workers, the majority of them, they know there's a problem, but they don't have an idea of what to do. So that's where, like, I don't know, at least my peers is kind of the feeling I'm getting, right? And so then to get them to move towards action, it requires a lot of hand-holding and very few obstacles, like no obstacles whatsoever. And so then it's either we just, and it's okay if this organization just really focuses on people who are very politically active, who are, like, already engaged and then I think to that population, dues are a little bit less like, oh, of course I have to pay dues, right? But then if it's somebody who's less clear on what they want to do in this climate health space, then it's just like one other barrier. Like, what am I exactly paying for? Do you know what I mean?
Okay, that makes sense. I think we'll have to explain this. I don't think we're explaining it as clearly as we feel like we are, that we wouldn't be asking for dues. Like we wouldn't be asking for dues, I think we agree with you. I don't know why I don't feel like I'm explaining it well, but the idea is to take people where they are and try to show them ways to get involved, and ways that they can participate. And then the voting would be linked to people who are participating more than are voting for the people who are on the leadership team and who are making more decisions about campaigns on which we're engaging. But it wouldn't, I don't know how else to say it. If somebody else understands and can say it, but it wouldn't be like, welcome, pay us dues to get going, that sort of thing.
Okay, then that's good. I think I thought of it like that, like, oh, hey, join us, pay us dues.
We never, we've never had dues. We don't have, I think, no, it would not be like that at all. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, but we're going to work on that, Shuin, because it's a good point. So we'll go to Mark next and then to Hannah after that.
Yes, so I'll start by saying my experience with most organizations are that they greatly struggle to get anybody vote for these kind of things, and they'd be lucky to get 10 or 20% of their membership. And the people who do vote are those who are engaged and they know the leaders and they actually care about who they're voting for or what the issue is that they're voting for. And so it might be a little bit of a solution looking for a problem. And so I'm not sure we really need to focus on it at all. I think the real goals are, membership dues. The truth is the goal is to raise money. So let's think about ways to incentivize people to want to put some money into the organization. Now, most people will put money into the organization because they care about what the organization's doing. Some people want to put money into an organization because they get some kind of perk on top of that. And that's a whole debate that all of our specialty societies are dealing with. And then on the next piece, again, it's like we want people to be engaged, but I don't think voting is an incentive to get them engaged. I think we have to come up with other ways to get them engaged. So I'm not sure the voting fits any piece of this. We don't need to restrict voting because only people who care are going to vote. And what we need to do is find the right incentives to get people to either put money into the organization or to put their energy into the organization. I personally don't think voting is an incentive to either of those groups.
Interesting. Great point. Thank you, Mark. I think you're right on the getting people to vote because everybody's so busy. And how to incentivize both of those, I think, is something we'll continue to think about. And then we'll go to Hannah.
Hi, I agree with the last two folks in terms of the dues being a barrier to joining. I mean, for example, I've been looking at this other organization for like 2 years now, and they have dues and I have not joined, even though it's an area that I'm interested in. And I joined this because it's free. So, and it's an area that I'm really interested in, but I haven't, said yes because I'm hesitant about the dues and what that's going to get me also. Especially for new folks who are new to climate or interested in getting involved. I do think that could be a potential barrier. One of the ideas that I was thinking about in terms of like how to get people engaged is, as part of them joining as members, potentially having them express interest in like various committees that they could be a part of or something like that, like whether it's the local group or more statewide or whichever that may be. And then that can help them in terms of having like a focus area that they can get involved in. So that might be one potential area to get new folks who are new to climate health in general to get involved, and then also encourage kind of participation in the organization. I do agree with what Mark said in terms of the people who will vote are the people who are engaged to begin with. So I don't think that that would be for the people who really care. I don't think they won't vote because they've been engaged for quite some time and they want their voices heard. So those are my 2 cents.
That's a good point. We'll go to Nathan and then we'll transition to the next part. Hi, Nathan.
Hey, Ashley. Hey, everyone. So my ideas kind of flow from the upstream idea about where the climate crisis comes from, and that it is arguably a profoundly anthropogenic or anthropocentric, the idea that we're separate from and superior to the natural world, along with the question of what meaningful solutions will look like. I strongly agree that state level and local level community engagement is fundamentally part of the solution, but I just want to maybe talk about a long-term aspiration that when we talk about partnerships, we can look beyond the restrictive, somewhat arbitrary framing of borders. And that's where maybe there's some tension with being a state level organization that is very much part of the Medical Society Consortium, which is the umbrella national level body, but just wanting to encourage us to not sell ourselves short with the level of leadership that California historically and hopefully into the future has played and will play. That just looking at places like Arizona and West Virginia, to mention two in particular, that maybe we could be proactive about trying to engage with health professionals in those areas as hopefully people who are going to be at the cutting edge forefront of what it looks like to have an effective state level organization, that can happen through the consortium, but it can also happen through true value-centered community partnerships where maybe we have friends or contacts in these areas that we can help support, and that leads to the transformative level of solutions that we need at scale, which is very much going to need to be national level, along with even looking broader, what can partnerships look like beyond the United States, and what can active engagements maybe in the future look like at the annual UN climate meetings, COP27, coming up in a few months. So I know this is kind of aspirational and more long-term, but just wanting to really encourage us to think about where this problem arises and what types of solutions will be necessary. And that I think we will need as many diverse relationships and partnerships that transcend borders as much as possible.
Definitely. Nathan is our connection to the Planetary Health Alliance. If any of you have heard about that, they're doing really great work too that does transcend those borders, but appreciate your point and sentiment. So thank you. We really, really, really are grateful for your time and input. Amanda's gonna, well, do you want to speak to this? The next steps, things coming up. So we have we are just starting to kind of sketch out what the players should be on the Advocacy Advisory Council, and our aspiration is to convene that, like we said earlier, of kind of California policy leaders, very heavily environmental justice focused community organizations. So we're going to be working on convening that at the latter part of this year. We're expanding our leadership team so that it's not just me and Amanda, although it's great to work with her really closely, but we definitely see the need and feel the need for expanding that in diversity in lots of different ways. So we're going to be moving towards a transitional leadership team in the next few months. We're also, with our consultants, working on our membership charter, which will kind of talk more about things like, you know, who does get to vote on the leadership team, and what does it mean to be a member? What kinds of activities, you know, can people participate in order to vote, things like that. So we'll be sharing that with you, of course, to get your feedback. And then our next community meeting is going to be Wednesday, August 17th at 12:30. And Amanda, I think we'll be able to drop the link to register in the chat. And then finally, as always, because we're all about building our base, 600, but we really want to be in the thousands in, you know, the year ahead. So I hope it's clearer now. Anybody in the health community. So Mark, if that construction worker is looking for his climate home or hers, you know, let's see what we can do together. But health community is the umbrella, and the way people join with no dues required at all is just to go to our website, and there's a very prominent join us button. So please do, you know, invite your friends, recruit this. This is, we need to grow, we want to grow, and it's all about sharing it with people we know. So couldn't be more grateful for you all spending the hour with us. We really value your feedback and partnership. And please, if you could finish up the Google form, we will very carefully go through it and inform our next decisions with your feedback.
Yeah, thank you all for being here. And when if you can click submit on the Google form, because otherwise we can't see what you wrote. And thank you all. And I think, again, there's some, this is so helpful, because obviously things sound one way in our heads and come out differently. And I think especially on this whole topic of dues, I think there's a lot that we need to dig into on how we're describing them, you know, and making it. But again, I just want to make sure everyone's leaving with the clear statement that we are not going to be asking for dues in any way as a requirement for membership. And yeah.
We do accept donations. Let that be clear.
Alrighty, so I think we are exactly at the hour. And Hannah, you had said, did the meeting notes sit somewhere where we can look back at them? We will share out the recording of this. And then we will also share out the Google form again. And then if there's something else specifically that you want, just let us know. Awesome. All righty, everybody. Have a good rest of the day. Thank you so much for being here.
Bye-bye.
Bye.